5 years old, was walking to the village stream to fetch water for his uncle's house. His footsteps were steady, but his heart was light. As he reached the stream, he saw a young woman struggling with 2 large clay pots full of water. Her name was Emily. She was tall, with eyes like dark honey and a smile that could light up the darkest night. Her arms trembled under the weight, and the pots threatened to spill. James's heart jumped. "Let me help you," he said gently. Emily looked up, surprised, but then smiled warmly. "Thank you," she said softly. Together, they lifted the heavy pots and began walking toward her home. Along the way, they talked about the village, their dreams, and the future. James found himself smiling more than usual. Emily's laughter was like music to his ears. That day, something sparked, a connection that neither of them could explain. But the village was small, and news traveled fast. Emily's parents were proud but protective. When they heard about James visiting their daughter, their faces hardened. "Young men like him have no future," Emily's father warned. "He cannot provide for you." But Emily's heart was stubborn. She wanted to see James. One evening, under the cover of darkness, James climbed over the fence into her compound. Hidden by shadows, they met under the ancient Iroko tree. "Emily, I want to see you every day," he whispered. She nodded, eyes shining with hope and fear. "Even if your parents don't approve?" "Even then." And so began a secret love, as beautiful and fragile as a morning dew. One warm afternoon, a stranger arrived in the small village. He was tall and wore sharp, fine clothes that caught the sunlight. His voice had the tone of a man from the big city. Lagos people in the village wondered who he was and what he wanted. James's uncle invited the stranger to their modest home for dinner. They sat close to the fire and talked deep into the night. The stranger told stories of the city, towering buildings, busy streets, and plenty of jobs. "There's a job waiting for a young man like you," the stranger said, looking at James. "At a block factory, with good pay and steady work. You could build a future there." James's uncle nodded thoughtfully. "This might be the chance you've been hoping for, my boy." But James felt heavy inside. His heart was with Emily. He loved her smile and her soft voice by the river. Leaving her felt like breaking something precious. The next morning, James quietly walked to the riverbank where Emily waited. The sky was bright and gentle, lighting up her face. "I want to stay with you," James whispered. "But the city, maybe it's where I must go to find a better life." Emily held his hands tightly, her eyes shining. "Go, James. Your future is there. I will finish my studies here, and then I will come find you." James's chest tightened. Tears began to fall. "I will miss you every day." "I will wait," Emily said softly, her voice strong. "No matter how long it takes." As they stood there, the quiet day seemed to hold its breath. Something was changing, their lives, their dreams, and the long road ahead. Would love be enough to keep them together? Or would the city pull them apart forever? The next morning, James left the village. His heart was heavy, filled with both hope and a strange, restless fear he couldn't shake. Lagos hit him like a storm. The noise was deafening, cars honking non-stop, people rushing past like waves, and towering buildings that seemed to disappear into the clouds. It felt alive, but also cold and dangerous. James quickly found work at the block factory. His employer was a tall, serious man who watched him closely. Strict, yes, but there was something else, a quiet tension in the way he spoke, as if he expected more than just work. James stayed in a modest room inside the employer's house. It was far from the peaceful village, and the silence of the nights made strange shadows dance on the walls. Sometimes, James thought he heard whispers outside his door. The work was harder than James imagined, lifting heavy blocks, mixing rough cement, and enduring long hours under the blazing sun that seemed to burn through his skin. Every night, James called Emily. Her soft voice was his only comfort. But sometimes, just before she answered, the call would cut off, leaving him staring at the silent phone, heart pounding. Loneliness crept in like a shadow, growing longer at sunset. One evening, James saw other young men spending money on alcohol and wild parties. They laughed loudly, but behind their smiles were secrets, hurried glances, hushed conversations. James felt the pull to join them, to forget his worries for just a night. But then, a cold thought stopped him. What if giving in meant losing Emily forever? Then again, he said, Emily is not here now, let me just enjoy myself a little. After all, there is no way she will know. Later he found himself with his friends partying and drinking alcohol. A year later, Emily finally arrived in Lagos. Her heart was full of hope, but also a quiet worry she didn't want to admit. She found a job as a receptionist in a modest hotel. The pay was little, barely enough to live on, but she was proud to work and start fresh. Together, Emily and James rented a small apartment. It was simple and cramped, but warm enough to feel like home. They opened a joint bank account to save money for their future. Every coin counted. Every night, Emily and James sat together, counting their pennies by dim light, dreaming of a life far better than this. But beneath the calm, something was wrong. Late at night, strange noises came from the apartment next door, doors creaking, low whispers. Emily sometimes caught James staring at his phone with a worried look, quickly hiding the screen when she asked. Bills were coming due, and the small savings were shrinking faster than they expected. One evening, James returned home late. His clothes smelled like smoke and something else, something Emily didn't recognize. When she asked where he had been, his answer was short and cold. That night, Emily lay awake, wondering if their dreams would survive the secrets growing quietly between them. Days passed, and the tension in the apartment grew thicker. Emily tried to hold on to hope, but the shadows around James seemed to deepen. One evening, while James was out, Emily noticed a strange message light blinking on his phone left on the table. She hesitated but then unlocked it. The message was from an unknown number, a warning, don't trust everyone. Some promises hide lies. Emily's heart raced. Who was sending these messages? And why? When James returned, she tried to ask, but he shut her down with a sharp look. That night, she heard footsteps outside their door, slow and deliberate. No one knocked, no one called out. Just silence and waiting. Fear wrapped around Emily like a cold blanket. Was someone watching them? Was James hiding something dangerous? She knew one thing for sure. Their dreams in the city were starting to crack, and the truth was waiting just around the corner. The next day, Emily's mind raced with questions she couldn't shake. She needed answers. While James was at work, Emily quietly searched his belongings. Her hands trembled as she opened his worn backpack. Inside, she found a small, folded piece of paper tucked beneath his wallet. Unfolding it, her eyes widened. It was a list of names and addresses, with some crossed out. At the bottom, a warning was scribbled, "Stay quiet. Or else." Emily's breath caught in her throat. This was more than just a job or a simple life struggle. James was involved in something dangerous. Later that evening, when James came home, Emily confronted him gently. "James, what is this? Who are these people?" He looked away, silent at first. Then, with a heavy voice, he confessed. "I didn't want you to get caught up in this. I'm trying to protect us." Emily felt a mix of fear and sorrow. Their dream of a better life was tangled in secrets she never saw coming. From that moment, she knew their fight was no longer just for money or survival, it was for their very lives. James sighed deeply as he began to explain. "Emily, when I first got to the block factory, some of the other young men there, my so-called friends, started pulling me into their world. They promised it would help me relax, that it was just for fun. But it quickly became more than that. Parties, drinking, women, it was hard to say no." He paused, looking down. "I managed to leave that life behind, but it wasn't easy. They didn't want me to quit, and sometimes, I still feel their pull." Emily's eyes filled with hurt. But James, you're still spending our savings on women and drinks. That money was supposed to build our future. James's face hardened. Emily, I work hard every day. I bring in the larger share of our money. I have every right to spend my own kobo how I want. Her voice shook. But it's our money, our future. You can't just waste it. James stood up, anger flashing in his eyes. I'm the one carrying us. Don't forget that. Emily started to rethink if it was a wise decision to have had a joint account with James. The room grew cold with silence. Emily wondered how their love could survive when trust was cracking under the weight of secrets and selfishness. Their dreams felt farther away than ever, threatened not just by the city's harshness, but by the man she loved slowly slipping away. Months later, Emily found out she was pregnant with a baby boy. She felt scared but also very happy deep inside. One evening, she looked at James and said, "James, let's get married properly. I want us to have both a traditional marriage and a court wedding." But James shook his head firmly. "Emily, I can only do the traditional marriage. A court wedding? Not happening, not over my dead body. I don't want to feel trapped by papers. Who knows, the woman might take everything I have." Emily was shocked and hurt. They argued many times about it. In the end, they agreed to only have the traditional marriage. Months later they welcomed their son. He brought them great joy and hope. The baby filled their home with laughter. One evening, James sat down with Emily and said, "Emily, I have a chance to travel to Canada. It's a real opportunity to build a better life for us and our son." Emily's eyes lit up with hope, but worry quickly took its place. "That sounds wonderful, James. But how do we afford the trip? It must be expensive." James took her hands gently and said, "Don't worry. I will use all our savings, and I'll also borrow some money from my boss to pay for everything." Emily looked at him, trusting his words. She wanted to believe this was their way out, a fresh start. Though her heart was filled with hope, a small voice inside whispered fear. Could they really make it? Was Canada the answer they needed, or a trap waiting to close? Only time would tell. For now, she chose to believe in James and the promise of Canada. A few weeks after James arrived in Canada, he quickly found a job. Excited, he began sending money back home to Emily and their son. He also started sending small amounts to pay off his debt from the block industry. James told Emily to stop working since he was now able to support the family. But Emily wasn't ready to stop working. She explained to James that having a job helped keep her busy and gave her purpose. After some convincing, James agreed that she could keep her job for a while. One day, James called Emily with great news. He told her to get ready because she and their son needed to go to the immigration center to get their passports. He said he was preparing the other documents to bring them to Canada soon. Emily was overjoyed. She couldn't wait to finally join James. At her workplace, some of her male colleagues noticed her happiness and started giving her small advances. They said things like, "While waiting for your man abroad, why not enjoy here?" But Emily always replied politely, "I'm married, and I will be joining my husband soon." However, something shocking happened in Canada. When James went to the immigration office to prepare the documents for Emily and their son, he met a woman named Martha. Martha was a Liberian lady with a warm smile. One day, Martha invited James to her home and served him a delicious soup. What James didn't know was that Martha had added a local love charm to the soup. After eating it, James became completely captivated by Martha. He forgot all about Emily and their son. James started going out with Martha regularly. He did everything she asked, sending money to her and even helping her siblings. Meanwhile, every time Emily called James, he complained. He told her things were very hard in Canada now and asked her to be patient and bear with him. Instead of sending for Emily and their son, James focused all his time and money on Martha and sent Martha family over to Canada. James stopped sending money to Emily and their son. Back in Nigeria, James's boss was getting very hungry for the remaining debt money because it was not fully paid. So he sent a message to Emily. He told her that since the husband is nowhere to be found and the debt is not fully paid, that she had no choice but to start working at the block industry herself. She would have to help carry blocks until the debt was fully paid. At first, Emily was shocked. How could she, a woman, carry heavy blocks? It felt impossible. But after much hesitation, she gave in and started working at the block industry. Many people laughed at her and mocked her. Every day, Emily cried silently, asking herself, when will I regain my freedom? One day, while Emily was working hard at the block industry, a very rich man came to buy blocks for his new building project. When Mr. Okoro saw how diligent and hard-working Emily was, he took a special interest in her. After his second visit, Mr. Okoro called Emily and asked her how she ended up working there. Emily told him everything, her struggles and the hard situation she was in. Mr. Okoro was deeply touched by her story. He decided to pay the remaining debts so Emily could be free. Emily was very thankful. She asked, "Sir, what can I do to repay you?" Mr. Okoro smiled and said, "Nothing. But if you ever need anything in the future, here is my card. Just call me." He handed her some money and said, "Go home and take care of your son. Use this to start selling foodstuff at the market." Emily thanked him with all her heart as Mr. Okoro left. A few months later, James traveled to Liberia with Martha. They had both a traditional marriage and a court wedding together. Martha was overjoyed. Finally, she had James all to herself. After their wedding, they flew back to Canada. But things quickly changed. Martha began treating James like a houseboy. She made him run errands for her, wash clothes, clean the house, and cook her meals. Whenever she found a reason, she shouted at him. James felt trapped but did not want to cause trouble. Back in Nigeria, Emily had started her foodstuff business. Slowly but surely, her business grew. Customers ordered from her both online and offline. With the money she earned, she was able to send their son to school. One day, Emily received a surprising phone call. It was from a friend of James. He told her a secret James had been hiding all these years. "You are a good person, Emily. I cannot keep this from you any longer," he said. James is married to a Liberian woman. They did both traditional and court marriage. He even sent her proof. Emily was shocked. She couldn't believe what she was hearing and seeing. For a moment, she felt like giving up. She thought, "I have waited for James all these years, not knowing he was happily living with another woman." While Emily was feeling this way, a neighbor walked in. She quickly took the medicine Emily had planned to take and said, "You want to leave your son alone? I know this is hard, but you must try to let go. Return the bride price and trust that you will find love again." A few days later, Emily told her parents to send back the bride price to James' family. They did, and Emily was ready to start over, though she was now cautious and skeptical about trusting men again. Emily resumed her business. With her son in Canada, Martha kept mistreating James. She believed that since they were there, she had the upper hand because she was a woman. She kept shouting at him and treating him badly for a long time. James obeyed quietly because he did not want to cause a scene. He felt trapped. But one day, after many humiliations, James lost control and hit Martha. Martha called the police. James was arrested and thrown out of the house. With nowhere to go and no money, James was deported back to Nigeria. When James arrived in Nigeria, he asked around about Emily. People told him she was now married to a very rich man and living a good life. James went to see her but was stopped at the gate by the security guard. The next day, James came again. This time, Emily was just driving into the compound. James knelt down and begged for forgiveness. Emily looked at him calmly and said, "I forgave you a long time ago. I have moved on. Our son is in America studying, thanks to Mr. Okoro, my loving and understanding husband." She then turned her back against him, leaving James crying on the ground, kneeling and broken. After a while, James got up. With nothing left, he left and traveled back to his village to start life all over again. Hope you enjoyed the story. Give your thoughts about the story in the comments section and don't forget to like the video, subscribe and turn all notifications for more interesting stories. Stay blessed, and see you in my next video.